Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegrand, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Atlanta Braves. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins head to Atlanta and continue their streak of losing to the Atlanta Braves. Now it's 11 straight games, Dan, that they've lost to this team.
Just remember, though, in 1991, they won 4 out of 7 when it really mattered, so at least they did that. This was really pretty depressing, especially after Game 1, which we thought that they had. And then the vibe of the series just changed so much. And then we get into Game 3 where they're down early. It was so disheartening because you look at the Braves' record, and they come into this series at 5-13, and you're like, what? And then they're probably looking at the Twins record at 7-12 at the time and thinking, great, this is just the team that we need to pick ourselves up. And it's sure enough, that's what they got out of this.
It was quite frustrating because I kind of thought that, yes, the Braves have a pretty strong pedigree. The last couple of seasons, they've been fantastic. They're down right now. Maybe we can capitalize, and then we go into a series against the White Sox. We can turn the season around, and the exact opposite happened, Dan. And in large part to Michael Harris II, who did he clone himself? He caught every single ball, Dan, that was hit to that man.
He was remarkable on defense. We have seen, and maybe we're just noticing it more for some reason, but we've seen a lot of great defense played against the Twins. And maybe it's because the Twins have been playing such poor, well, they just can't throw to first base, apparently. And we saw that again with Julian earlier in the series, too. It was just not, you got to play your best baseball when you're playing a team like the Braves. And yeah, they're down, but, they had series against the Padres, against the Dodgers. They started really, really poorly. They've been okay since then. So it was a shame because you're getting the Braves without Acuna, and so you figure maybe this is a chance to finally steal a couple, and they can't even steal a game.
This could have been an easy series victory had this team tried. It just feels like they don't try, Dan, but I don't want to go down this pessimism train too drastically. Before we get into it, though, Dan, this last episode, you missed out on the Mets recap. It was a fun show with Hogs, all because you were at Hamilton. I am so anxious to hear, Dan, how was your Hamilton experience?
I am not throwing away my shot.
The best part about seeing Hamilton live is that Lin-Manuel Miranda is not in it. And I have nothing against the man, right? But he doesn't sing. Like, he kind of speaks, and he's brilliant, right? So brilliant to come up with the idea. But it was just nice to hear some of my favorite songs actually sung. We had a great time. We brought one of our sons, and then a bunch of my students and a couple parents of theirs. And so they left it thinking this was the greatest experience ever. And I couldn't help but think of you, David, because I think if we had brought you to Hamilton, I just wonder what you would have thought. Would you be blown away by the majesty of it and the beauty of it, or would you be nitpicking, like you often do?
Probably nitpicking.
Yeah,
if I were to guess. So I will say on Tuesday night, I had my dose of theater too. We took the kiddos to Frozen at the Children's Theater. Okay, first of all, I don't love the movie Frozen to begin with. I think
see, there you go. You're nitpicking.
Overrated.
You're nitpicking a brilliant children's film.
No.
Not just children's film. It's a great film.
You think Frozen is a great film?
I think Frozen
in the world of animated films, Dan.
Do.
Oh, sell snowman dolls to children? Yeah, I suppose it's good at that, Dan. And have one song that sings that doesn't even make sense in the plot.
Please
the whole no, hang on, just a minute. Just a minute here. The baseline of this story is that Anna's heart is frozen, right? That's the whole bit. And it takes an act of true love to unthaw a frozen heart.
Sure.
Why on earth would it be her the one who does the act of love? The whole bit should be the opposite of what happens. Elsa should save Anna. That's the whole bit, Dan. It drives me nuts.
See, I just think that you're giving this too much careful. I'm just gonna play this. There we go. We're just gonna. Can we get back to baseball?
Yes, we should.
Right,
oh my goodness, we shouldn't have even started on this path because I knew where it ended. Let's go ahead and jump into the series recap.
Series Recap.
Game 1, the Twins led this game for so long, and then they lost it in the bottom of the 8th. They lose this one 6-4. Chris Paddock pitches dare we say, a Paddock gem here. 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, just 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. That 1 run just came on a home run, and the Twins scored early. They had a lead. Keishel was playing well. We're going to talk about Luke Keishel, who got called up for his first ever MLB game. This game couldn't have started any better.
No, it was great here. Top of the second, Correa doubles, Jeffers hits an RBI double, and then Luke Keishel's first hit and RBI scores Jeffers. So the Twins are up 2-0. Then Keishel steals second base. So in his first couple of plays of action at MLB, he gets a hit, an RBI, and he steals a base. And I love these. I know it's a little bit sentimental, but Dan,
how can you not be romantic about baseball?
When the camera pans over to his family and Grandpa's standing up and he's bawling, Dan, tears are absolutely flowing. But the thing is, he has to get it together fast enough to see the kid steal second base. Like, everything's happening so fast, Dan.
He did more in that inning than Mickey Gasper did in like 3 weeks on the Twins roster. It was incredible.
Harsh. Dan Thompson coming back feisty. I love it.
It's just the math. Now, bottom of the second, Paddock gets himself into trouble, and you're thinking, okay, well, maybe this is going to be when the Braves are going to bust out. Because 2 years ago, when the Twins played in Atlanta, like, it got ugly fast. In a couple of those games. Olsen walks. Murphy hits one back to Paddock that should have been a double play. But Eddie Julian, it's like he had too much time again. We've talked about this. And he doesn't take it. He airmails the throw to France at first. And then Michael Harris hits a ball to Correa, who then commits what's an actual error. Julian's wasn't an error because apparently, you can't assume the double play, right?
So dumb.
But thankfully, no damage is done. Yeah. So, and then the Twins are able to get another run back with Trevor Larnach finally hitting a home run. So the Twins are up 3-0. Again, still looks good.
Yeah, and I we need to note here, because of that bottom second, I think Paddock could have gotten through 6. Mm-hmm. But he had to face like 2 or 3 extra batters because of the ineptitude of the defense behind him. Quite frustrating. But top of the 4th, Lee walks, Keishel doubles, and then Kersey Jr. hits a grounder to third. Lee and Keishel are running on contact, but then Lee's thrown out at home. He gets a bloody nose. It's a weird contact play with Murphy. The helmet kind of comes up and hits Lee, but at the same time, Lee took an awkward line into the base, and the announcing during that phase was interesting because they're like, oh yeah, he's just saying that, that's just what happens in baseball. Like, I gotta think, was Murphy maybe a little apologetic for the way that all went down, do you think?
You would think so. These guys don't want to hurt each other unless you're Josh Donaldson, I think. And so, sorry. I think that was probably just fine. And here's the thing, the Twins get a run still at least. Eddie Julian hits a sac fly. So game 1, they did the little things that they needed to, except for the defense, I suppose. But at least when they were batting, they did those little things that made a difference.
Bottom 5, Braves get on the board with a Kelenic solo shot. The Twins are still up 4-1, and you're thinking, this is going to be great. And then it all falls apart in the bottom of the 8th. We're going to talk about this more. It was at the hands of Griffin Jacks. The Braves end up winning this one 6-4. Again, we'll touch more on that later in the segments. Let's move on to game 2, Dan, which has a closer score, but never felt in reach like game 1 did.
Absolutely. So they lose this one 4-3 to the Braves. Twins do strike early. They get a leadoff single by Buxton, followed by a Keishel RBI double into the left field corner. So it's 1-0. And then, curious move that we're going to talk about later too, Rocco decides to use Topa as an opener.
Sure.
I tell you the truth, I'm a little confused by your tactics.
I guess Rocco's channeling his inner Ray. I don't know why he was doing that. It doesn't work great. He does give up a run on a Matt Olson double. Top of the 3rd, though, the Twins get a triple from Buxton, one of the best plays in baseball. But the Twins can't bring him home like they were able to do a little bit more in game 1. Jeffers walks, Keishel strikes out, France grounds out. And then we have SWR, who all in all was okay, I suppose, in this game.
Yeah, not great. So bottom of the 3rd, he pitched a clean second. He gets into trouble, though, in the 3rd. Verdugo doubles, Riley singles, then Matt Olson again hurts the Twins. His batting average against the Twins is like 460 or something. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, so the Braves go up 2-1. And then top of the 4th, Carlos Correa, shockingly, who 5 days ago, Dan, I was convinced was going to go on the IL because of this weird wrist injury. Well, now he's hitting his first home run of the season to get the Twins on the board.
I want to build a championship culture.
Yeah, the injury thing is just weird. I don't understand how you've got a lingering wrist injury that takes you out of an at-bat and then just like goes away.
And I guess he's been dealing with it since, he said, last fall,
right,
and through spring training. We have yet to hear about that and never really see it affect him.
It's really bizarre. Top of the 5th, Buxton leads off with a single and then steals second, of course. We're going to talk about the steals a little bit later on too. Keishel flies out, Jeffers walks, France walks, so the bases are loaded with 1 out. Correa's at the plate, but he strikes out swinging. Bader does the same. You got to get a run in there. Correa, you have to be able to hit the ball to the outfield. Heck, even even if you just, well, I shouldn't say a grounder because Correa's not all that fast, obviously. But
yeah.
There's got to be a way to get a run in there.
It's so frustrating in these moments, especially a game that they lose by 1 run.
Mm-hmm.
They should have won this game almost more than they should have won game 1. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Game 2, it didn't feel in reach just because we're Twins fans and that's how it felt. Game 1 felt like we had a chance to win it and then we kind of gave it away. Game 2 felt like, well, yeah, of course they're just going to waste all these opportunities. When in actuality, they just needed 1 or 2 swings to go their direction and they come away with this game.
So then, top of the 6th, Lee walks, Larnach singles, runners are at the corners, Buxton hits a sac fly to score Lee, and so they do finally get that run. They're ahead, but then immediately in the bottom of the 6th, Harris, who we've talked about what he's been able to do in the field, he hits a home run to tie the game, and then Atlanta strings together a couple more singles to go up 4-3, which is how it finished. SWR, who I guess is still the starter of note here in this game, goes 4 1/3, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 1 home run. I just don't think the opener option worked all that well here, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later. And then there's game 3.
Yeah, so Twins lose this one 2-6. Joe Ryan, who should never pitch against the Braves in Atlanta. It's something about Bailey Ober in Kansas City and Joe Ryan in Atlanta. They need to have a big map of the U.S., Dan, in the clubhouse, and it'll show all of the cities where which pitchers can pitch and which ones can't. I think that would help Rocco out a lot.
But I am a little stitious.
Right, and that's what we need is one more variable for Rocco to have to be able to play with here is setting that up. It's a shame, he's not great. 5 innings, 8 hits, 6 earned runs. He still, of course, does eat up those 5 innings for Rocco. 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, but 3 home runs. The Braves just know what they're looking at with him, and I don't think he's got an injury that he's hiding to hide behind for this one.
The game started out quick. He had 2 quick outs, and then things kind of got away from him and things unraveled. But so it's bottom of the 1st. Matt Olson again destroys this Twins team. He hits a solo shot. Braves lead 1-0. And then bottom of the 2nd, there's 2 outs, but the Braves string together a ton of singles with Kelenic, Verdugo, Riley. Braves are all of a sudden up 3-0. And this team, Dan, they didn't let up Joe Ryan. They were like, we are going to keep piling on this man. Bottom of the 3rd, fun continues for the Braves. Michael Harris hits a double, followed by Drake Baldwin, the hero from game 1, with a 2-run homer. So the Braves are up 5-0 before it even seems like the Twins have woken up yet in time for this game, Dan.
Top of the 4th, the Twins again have a great chance. They load the bases with Larnach and Correa singles, and then Jeffers hit by a pitch. But then Keishel, the hero of the series, it seemed, wasn't able to come through here. He pops out. The Twins do score 1 on a wild pitch, but then Lee flies out to Harris, who again caught everything. And then we have the top of the 5th. Twins get another chance with the bases loaded with a Bader walk, a Buxton double, a France walk. See, these things were just in the wrong order. So they needed these to be like if you could take all of these outcomes and rearrange them, then I think the Twins might have been able to win this series. Put the walks first and then the double after that, and then you've got yourself a run or 2.
We should talk to him about that.
We can. Come on, Manfred. If you're changing the rules on all these other things, can we do that, please?
Allow us to change what happened
in one inning, right? So each team gets one
the golden inning. Oh, Dan. This has to go out into the world. People need to hear about this.
A golden inning that you can rearrange the outcomes. No problems with that at all. It doesn't
no, I'm sure it's fine. Capacity. It won't mess up the statistics at all. So you walked? No, I hit a double, but kind of pretend.
We're just going to trade. You take my walk and I'll take your double. Bottom of the 5th, Ozuna hits a solo home run, so it's 6-1, and it feels pretty out of reach at that point. Buxton does hit a home run. We're going to talk about it a little bit later in the top of the 7th, but it's 6-2, and then that's where the final is. The Braves bullpen is able to kind of wrap things up. The Twins use Duran in another losing situation here, which doesn't give you good vibes for how the team is doing. And then Danny Coulomb pitches an inning. He's still yet to give up an earned run.
He's a good guy. He's a good addition, Dan.
There you go.
I guess that's the positive note to end on, certainly. But the other positive, Dan, Easter Sunday, I'm wearing my Sunday best. I had a ham, and it just made me think I couldn't wait for those days, Dan, when I start to grill some burgers and steaks.
I was going to say, because spring is right here, David, and it's time to think about dusting off the grill, inviting the neighbors over for a good old backyard barbecue. Now, lucky for you, Cub Foods is your one-stop shop for all of your grocery needs. It's got everyday fresh products, a wide selection, and so you'll be in great shape to host the next grill out with all your backyard essentials. You got your deli meats, party trays, bakery, everything fresh, all in one stop. With over 100 locations in Minnesota, check out your local Cub on your next shopping trip for all of your springtime essentials.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
I love it, Dan. I love it. I don't love this one that much because I would love Puckett's Picks to go my way when everybody scores high and I just score the highest. This was embarrassing. So I went with Buxton, who had 11, and then Lee and Bader, who listeners and Hogs took respectively, each had -1. Dan took Julian, and if you thought -1 was bad, nope, but Julian had -2, Dan Thompson.
Oh, Canada,
he roped me in, right, with some of those previous appearances. I thought I had him. For the record, I wanted to pick Buxton. I think I have the receipts for that. Like, he was my first choice, but you picked before me and very wisely chose him. You also got the half-point bonus for the first time this season. So now the standings in the season, I have 3 wins. You have 2.5 points. Hogs has 2. Listeners still looking for their first one. Season points, the listeners are still in the -3. I have 6. So I'm playing, I don't know what game I'm playing here, but it doesn't feel like I should be winning. Hogs has 14 points, and then you, David, have 20 in the category that, to be fair, I think is the most important.
It's not, but thank you for your thoughts and your
You're welcome. Yeah.
Your consideration. Let's go here. Beast versus bench.
Beast versus bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
I mean, I know it's a bit cliche at this point, Dan, but I have to give it to Buxton. I just think he had a really good series. Game 1 was rough, but Game 2 and Game 3, he showed up. He was ready to play in front of his hometown crowd, and I just wish that the rest of the team would see the effort that man is putting out. There was a stat earlier before this series started. I think Buxton has been on base like 20 times, and he's scored 15 of those times. That's how hard he's trying to get home.
This is why you just can't question the guy's heart. You can question the fact that he's been hurt a lot, and maybe we knock on wood now and he ends up getting hurt sometime soon here. But I think having a full offseason, which he said was going to make a difference, where he wasn't rehabbing something, where he was able to just kind of like live his life, I think maybe that's made a difference here. But the heart that guy has shown, and his speed, let's be honest. I mean, his ability to get on base, a little bit of luck, I'm sure, is part of that too. But the bottom line is he's finding ways to score, and he'll make plays like, I think it was in the last series, where he can just get home faster on a ground ball and beat the throw, right? So the speed really does play.
Well, and not to mention all the plays he made in center, like this series and last, he just made it look easy when he's ranging a crazy distance to his right or to his left to catch these balls.
I'm going to go with another guy with some speed, actually, and it's Luke Keeschel, who gets his first call-up. And how important was it for this team's long-term, even the short-term here? He gets a couple hits in his first 2 at-bats. So he's 2 for 4 in the first game. Game 2, he's 1 for 5. And then in Game 3, he's 1 for 3. The guy is finding ways. He also got on base on a walk. This is maybe the spark that they have needed here. You can get him in a lineup eventually, with, Brooks Lee has been playing, I know his batting average hasn't been great, but I do think he's going to turn that around. You get Royce Lewis back eventually. There's a little bit of the glimpse of maybe some of this young future of this team coming through here, and maybe they're the guys who are going to step up and kind of support Buxton right now, because quite honestly, you look at the rest of the roster, Correa's still under 200, Larnach is batting 200, Wallner's hurt, Ty France has come back considerably from his hot start. There's just not anybody else, and Keeschel is right now, he looked like one of their best hitters immediately.
He looks like a guy I wouldn't want to mess with, Dan. Like, I'm not going to mess with anybody to begin with, right? I'm a peacemaker.
Except for Hobbs, which we heard in the last episode there.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. But Keeschel, that guy is thick, man. Do you see, like, his whole body? He just looks like he's in the gym a lot, is what I'll say, Dan.
Would you say that he is the same proportion of Jim Thome, or
okay. Did you not think that Hogs was being ridiculous? I thought your illustration was so perfect that the little picture where you're pulling it and then him comparing himself to Shaquille O'Neal. Are you crazy, Andrew Hogs?
I think Hogs he's a middle manager, right? So he doesn't know what it's like to actually, do the work that needs to get done, maybe.
Oh, he's going to love that.
Sorry, Oaks. That was a little harsh. You're not even on the episode here. And we know he's not in studio with us. So
No, certainly not. Well, who do you have on your bench, Dan?
Anyway, oh gosh, I got to look back at the notes. Well, it's one of the guys I just talked about. It's Ty France.
Yeah.
After all, miss, this is France.
0 for 9. He's being counted on. He's being put higher in the lineup, and this is how he rewards the Twins, is an 0 for 9 series when any one of those hits could have won them a game.
Yeah, a really great pick. I hope that he can continue like what he started on this season, really coming out hot, but he has struggled quite a bit. I'm going to go with Joe Ryan. I'm sorry. Last start, we talked about this and how he said that like he didn't have any time in the dugout, and people are saying that shouldn't be viewed as a shot at the offense. Who's it a shot at, Dan? If it's not a shot at the offense, yes, it is a shot at the offense that you gave him no time to recover between innings. At the same time, Dan, he struggled. And I just, honestly, maybe it is just that he can't pitch in Atlanta, but this was a bad outing from the guy who we definitely need to be a rock to this foundation.
It's not a good look. When I guess what it is, it's a caution to not even take those slight shots at your teammates, because baseball's a hard sport. And
yes,
he knows that he's going to a place next that he didn't pitch well at a couple years ago. Like, I think, Joe, you got to be a little more mature than that and not make those little comments. Make those comments to the guys in the dugout. Don't make those comments publicly.
Definitely. And we should note, too, a quick note on the rotation. Pablo Lopez did make a rehab start with the Saints, which I saw some people criticizing, like, well, why didn't he just make a start for the team? I don't think that's a terrible thought. I do think they probably didn't want him to go deep into a game, and they wanted him just to make sure he was stretched out fine. I'm not as critical about that as I would be, because the rotation is far from the number one problem for this team. But thankfully, I'm guessing he makes the start on Thursday against the White Sox.
Well, we should point out a couple other moves that were made at this time. The Twins acquired Jonah Bride from the Marlins, who he had not been playing well for them, but he played a little bit in this series. He takes the spot of Scott Blewett, who was claimed by the Orioles, as you guys mentioned, off the 40-man.
And then released by the Orioles 5 days later.
So apparently he's still the same guy, and the Orioles see him the same way that the Twins do. I wonder how many teams he could play for in one season, just doing these little spot starts across the league.
Yeah, well, Michael Tonkin, I think, had like 4 or 5 last season, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And then one other move, Brock Stewart was reactivated from the injured list. Cody Funderburk was sent down. So now the Twins have nobody who can get lefties out better than getting out righties.
Wonderful. With that, Dan, let's go to Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
I do actually want to praise Rocco here, and it is faint praise, but the stolen bases and the aggressiveness on the base paths this year has been refreshing. And maybe it's because Buxton is feeling healthier, but they had 3 steals this series. They have 12 on the season. They are ranked 23rd in the league still, and that's still an improvement. Last place is the Athletics with 6. Now, the Twins have only been caught stealing 4 times, so I would totally take that percentage. And it's funny because you look up and down the league, some teams are, well, for the most part, the better teams, and this makes some sense, that's about the ratio, right? 3 successful steals to 1 bad one. But my goodness, the Brewers have stolen 33, the Mariners 32, the Cubs 29. It shows how little the Twins have been doing on the base paths lately. And yet it's like, Rocco, where was this? Did you not realize that this was probably a good strategy when they made those bases bigger and they made the pickoff rules different?
Now they do have a couple of guys who have a little bit more speed between Bader and between Kersey Jr., who's getting some play time. And then obviously Keishel now, who I think he's going to be in line with Buxton, where every time he's on first base, he's looking to swipe second.
It changes the dynamic. It makes every inning kind of into like an extra inning setup when you get that guy on second base. And maybe it's also because we've watched so much extra inning baseball, like it's so much easier to score a run when you've got a guy on second, which feels really, that's an obvious thing to say, right? But if you can get Buxton on, he should be stealing second every time. And it's nice to see Rocco doing it pretty much every time now.
Yes, love it. Do you remember the last time the Twins have used an opener?
No, I don't remember it, and it felt like a weird moment to do it.
I want to know if there was a rationale. Was there something that like SWR said that like, hey man, I'd really prefer someone else to start this game? I want to know what the thought process is here, because normally when there's an opener, it's a guy on the mound who's going to be your starter, who's not going to get real deep. Well, SWR, they've let him throw 105, 107 pitches. It's not like he doesn't have the capability to go deep. So I just want to know why this moment, why this time. I did see a comment on Twitter. I wish I could find it. I couldn't find it back. I looked. But somebody put in the Minnesota Twins comments, well, the bullpen can't blow a lead if they start as the opener. And they did, though, because the Twins scored in the first. So, like, it was just sort of, I laughed at the comment. I thought it was really funny. And then just the fact that it did play out, that the bullpen, like, gave up a lead was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I don't mind the opener idea, especially if you are so obsessed about that third time through the order with guys. And so clearly Rocco's trying to move that down a little bit. It's an interesting strategy. I wouldn't say that it was a make or break in this game by any means, but the Topa choice is just kind of weird. Do you not want to come out? I don't know. What happened? Who do you pick? How do you make that pick? It seems like a choice to just kind of mix things up, just to kind of do it. We'll see if they continue to do it. I would just like to hear a more thought out rationale as to why, and if there's a pattern to it and a reason for it, so that we can better understand it.
Well, I think what you said is good about how the third time through the order, and that's sort of what you're trying to make guys avoid. But my question is then, Dan, why would you do that against the Braves, a team that's clearly struggling, and not the Mets, who have a top 3 who are arguably the top 3 in baseball besides maybe the Dodgers and maybe the Yankees?
I guess we'll see. Maybe it's a comfort thing. Maybe they need to find a pitcher who wants to do that for them out of the bullpen. It just, none of these guys strike me as being all that interested in it.
You know who I know would love to be an opener for the Twins, Dan?
Scott Blewett.
Oh, no. I was going to say Randy Dobnik, just because he seems like he's that kind of guy. But
all right, let's move forward here to the Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
Well, game 1, bottom 8, Dan. Jax comes in. The Twins are up, but the storm cometh, and thy name is Griffin Jax, Dan. So Ozuna walks, Olsen singles, Albies hits an RBI single, Murphy walks, and I feel bad for Cole Sands, because Cole Sands has been great. But my goodness, Rocco is like, oh, we're in desperate need of some help. Let's bring in Cole Sands with more runners on base than there are bases. Like, never does Cole Sands get an opportunity to come into the game when there's nobody on base. He's like, oh, bases loaded, no outs. Well, let's call Cole up here. Like, it's just, it's great. Like, I understand that's a lot of confidence you have in that guy. But at the same time, I just feel bad for him, Dan. He always gets brought in the worst possible positions.
And yet you wouldn't think he'd have to be mopping up for Griffin Jacks. But
yes.
So this is what's fascinating to me. Last year, Griffin Jacks pitched 71 innings. He gave up 4 home runs, 16 earned runs over that entire span. And his ERA was 2.03. This year, 8 innings. He's given up 10 earned runs and 2 home runs already. I mean, and it's still April. I mean, It's almost mathematically impossible for him to replicate the success that he had. He would have to pitch the next 63 innings and give up only 6 runs to match his number last year. Like, I don't see how his ERA is dropping below 3 this year.
Do you think he's broken? Like, is there something wrong with him?
It's entirely possible.
I don't believe that man's ever been to medical school.
But we haven't heard anything. He's a military man. You think he'd come clean about some kind of injury here? He's got the honesty gene or something like that.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
You don't have that
So
sound.
maybe he'll just do what he's told, I guess, too. I can see it both ways. It's hard to think that he's not, because you go back the last 3 years, he's had ERAs under 4. He's been a lockdown guy. I don't see a reason for him to suddenly not work anymore.
It's just very frustrating that he's basically single-handedly lost the Twins 3 to 4 games this season.
That's the thing, right? And because these are 8th inning moments that you think, oh, they've got this locked down. And it's not like, you could check me, but it's not like 1-run leads he's losing. This was a 3-run lead that he blew single-handedly.
Oof, it hurt, Dan. What do you have here for your moment?
Well, it's a positive one. It's Byron Buxton homering in his home state for the first time, I believe, as a professional. Now, he doesn't get to go to Atlanta very often. It's once every couple of years. But I thought that was a really cool moment to cap off what was a pretty dang good series, what has been a very good month for Byron Buxton. We've seen him come out and have a great April before. I think he was AL Player of the Month a couple of years ago. So I sure hope he can keep this up. I hope this is signs of just things to come in May, June, July, August, September.
Let's hope so, Dan. Let's keep pushing here. Maurer's musing.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Maurer's musings.
So, Dan, like I said at the beginning, I thought that this series was going to be a great opportunity for this Twins team to sort of bounce back, because we go Braves, who are struggling, to the White Sox, who are in an eternal struggle against whether or not they should switch sports. Or I think they're going to keep playing baseball. And I have to be careful, Dan. You know, those in glass houses should not throw rocks here. Twins are only a game and a half up on the White Sox. So just looking at the current season standing, the Twins are currently 6 games back from Detroit. And then Cleveland is half a game back from Detroit. Kansas City is 4.5 back from Detroit. So the Twins are only a game and a half behind Kansas City. And again, I realize games back. The only reason I like to look at that is because that's what truly matters at this point. Like, It doesn't matter how bad you are if the entire division is terrible. But at this point, Dan, I'm having a hard time seeing a way that this Twins team turns it around. Even if they had everybody healthy, everybody comes back from the IL, and the team is at 100%, something needs to change. I'm going to finally say it, Dan. The logical change at this point is for Rocco to be removed. I think it's the cleanest, I think. And it gives the team something to look to, hey, we've done something different. And Rocco's not going to do something different enough, I don't think, to turn things around at this juncture. Am I crazy at this point? I feel like I've really tried to hold off saying things like this, because I the manager can only do so much. He's not out there swinging the bat. He's not out there throwing the ball. But at the same time, Dan, some of these things, they need to be answered to by somebody. And I think it's got to be Rocco, and the time is now.
The Philadelphia Phillies a few years ago, when the season they made their World Series run, they changed managers early on in that season. They weren't doing well. They didn't change the players. I think that it is a move that is understandable. It would be, nobody's going to question that and say, ooh, a little too soon. This is his 6th year. And we continue to see, this is the 2nd year in a row with a struggle out of the gate. This is coming off, though, that really ugly end to last season. You can't say that he doesn't have like a full complement of players, because quite honestly, he's not had Royce Lewis more often than he's had Royce Lewis in the lineup.
Yeah.
He's really the only bat right now. You can talk about Matt Wallner, of course, as well. But at the end of the day, like, this is a talented enough lineup, you would think, to be able to score some more runs and win some games. You've got a good bullpen. I think the choices that we can criticize him for his bullpen management. We can criticize him for his starter management. We can criticize him for his lineup makeup. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can say, hey, Rocco, you might have tried this. Yeah, I just, if not now, when? would you say that Rocco needs to go? And they haven't made that run. The risk of giving Rocco another week or two to try to sort this out could even be the difference between turning this around and making the playoffs. You get to 7-20. Let's say they're 9-22. That's 13 under, a fifth of the way through the season. I don't think you're coming back from that. And then you pile that on top of the way that the Twins fan base is already against this team because of ownership.
Yes.
Like you can't afford to, you don't have a lot of goodwill right now to play with. And so, I think if there's a moment, I think this might actually be it too.
It's just frustrating because I don't want to use the word rebuild because my original question I wrote here was, who are they going to dump at the trade deadline if things don't turn around? But the thing is, I do think they have enough talent here, Dan. So I don't think it's the players. There's something else here. And the players still need to perform. But at the same time, I think a new voice leading them wouldn't be the worst thing at this point.
Case in point are the two teams that are playing in the playoffs right now from Minnesota, the Timberwolves and the Wild. They have made midseason coaching changes over the last decade, and they've worked. And it's made a difference, and they haven't changed personnel. And so I think, if anything, we know that it works on principle. The Twins just have, I don't know that they've tried that in a long, long time. Yeah.
I mean, and even some people argue that the Molitor switch, I think we even did probably at the time, that was probably a bit aggressive. I mean, Paul, I think, could have done what Rocco did in 2019. I have to be honest, it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out that if you throw a bouncy ball at a guy with a bat, they're probably going to hit a lot of home runs. Now, granted, I'm being a bit facetious. Obviously, I'm sure that Rocco played a role in that. But at the same time, you got to
He did have to write the names into the lineup card and give it to the umpire. So, I mean, there's that, I suppose.
He just did it by order of home runs hit. Like, well, what do you have here for your musing, Dan?
I'm just going to take a moment to go away from baseball. Are you watching more Wild or Timberwolves right now?
So neither. So here's the thing. I cut cable, right? So I don't have a way to watch either of these things. So I'm like frantically scrolling Twitter for highlights and like looking at the game. So last night I sat down and I watched like 15 minutes of the Wolves highlights on YouTube. And that was really fun to watch just because to see Ant and like Jaden McDaniels and those guys, I'm not really a basketball guy, right? I don't have time for it. I can only choose so many sports to watch, but it is fun to see a Minnesota team that does look like it could make some noise in the NBA, Dan.
Let's hope so. And let's hope the Wild, who, by the time people are listening, they'll have already played game 1. Though I guess game 2 against Vegas starts at like midnight in Minnesota. So I don't think a lot of people are even watching that one.
No. It's like, remember when they used to have like the series against Vancouver and they like tried to make it this big, like, this is a big rivalry. It's like everybody's asleep. Who's watching these games right now?
I think we could say the same for the Twins.
It's 2:00. Why is everybody sleeping? Because it's terrible. It's terrible baseball to watch. Okay, let's grade this series, Dan. This seems like a really necessary segment.
Series grades.
It's an F. You should have won game 1. You should have made a better fight to win game 2. Just not good offensive play. Some of the pitchers struggled. You had to win 1 here, and you probably should have won 2.
I'm going to give them an F as well. There's nothing I need to add to that, David. This was ugly. You got swept on the road by a team that wasn't playing very well. This was your chance, and now you blew it.
You know what's nice, though, Dan? If you do have those afternoon naps, it's nice to know that even when you're sleeping, your internet connection is strong, and your videos are still going to be there when you wake up. Attention, Minnesota. There's a new high-speed internet sheriff in town. Gateway Fiber has landed in Blaine, Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Coon Rapids, Maple Grove, and Plymouth, with plans to extend deeper into Minnesota. Gateway Fiber boasts a fiber optic network that exceeds the capabilities of some of the biggest players in the business, giving you more whiz for less cost for all of your online working, streaming, gaming, and whatevering. With no hidden fees, no data caps, and no installation fees, Gateway Fiber is perfect for your home or business. Go to gatewayfiber.com to get fast, reliable, and affordable high-speed fiber internet.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
Not a ton of news around the league, Dan, because as you sort of mentioned, things are being dominated by the NBA and NHL playoffs. But one story I did want to make note of, there's this crazy game that took place at Wrigley. Diamondbacks Cubs. The Cubs are up 7-1 entering the 8th inning. The Diamondbacks scored 10 runs in the top of the 8th, Dan, which seems like only something that could happen to the Twins, but I guess it happens to other teams as well. What happens next, though, is what doesn't happen to the Twins. The Cubs come back. They score 8 in the bottom of the 8th, so the final score is the Cubs win this one 13-11, Dan.
What drama, what a game, what a finish.
Reminds me of that game we went to together last summer where the Twins were down. It was something like 10 going in the bottom of the 9th, and they scored 9 or something like that. Got the Correa grand slam. But yeah, like you said, they finished it. One other thing I wanted to add here too. So the Yankees, this is funny to me. So Yankees left-handed ace Max Fried had a no-hitter going through 7 innings. But then he went out for the bottom of the 8th, and his no-hitter was over because in the half-inning break, they changed the scoring of a play from an error to a hit. Which, this is where you know that baseball knows that no-hitters don't matter. They would not have done that if a perfect game was... Well, I guess it wouldn't have been a perfect game but if there's an error in there, right? But, like, this shows you no-hitters. No. They don't matter.
They're just pretend.
Yeah, they are.
Nobody cares.
There you go. It's good use of that one. Yeah, the Yankees won that one 4-0. 2 hits that they ended up giving up.
Okay, well, with that, Dan, let's make our Puckets picks for the upcoming White Sox series that, my goodness, sweep the White Sox so we don't have to be sad next episode.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckets picks.
So the listeners are going to take Buxton off the board. Not shocking there. Then it goes to you, Dan Thompson.
I'm going to do something a little different, but I'm going to go with Harrison Bader. So I don't think that the White Sox pitchers have seen as much of Harrison Bader as they've seen of the other batters that the Twins will put up there. So I'm hoping that a lack of familiarity will really throw them off.
I think that Bader, for the entirety of this season, is going to sort of be leaned upon because of our fond memories of the beginning of the season and the plays he's made. But he's being sort of exposed as the season progresses as maybe not that great from the offensive side of the ball.
Still picking
Maybe
him.
I'm wrong.
You know, we're just going to ride him through the White Sox series here.
I'm very excited to see at the end of the season, like after the quarter mark, he's never picked again, like for the rest of the season. Hogs then is going to take Luke Keeschel, which not a bad pick, honestly. It doesn't take a lot to win Puckett's picks normally at this point, Dan. So then I got to take Carlos Correa because he is available and not injured, which I sort of thought he would be at this point with his weird wrist stuff. But
well, he's kind of injured, right? I mean, like he's injured, but he's not. It's pain, not injury, or something like that.
I want to build a championship culture.
Champions fight through it, Dan Thompson.
There you go. Well, David, they do get to play the White Sox. One of the only teams that's worse than them. Might be the only one that's worse than them in the baseball. So let's see. It'll be a true test, I think, of the Twins here coming up this week.
Certainly. Well, I'll go ahead and send us out, Dan. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform so that you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon, link in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.